Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Iron Bark podcast, and I am your host, Epion. Today, I don't got a whole lot to talk about. I'm going to talk about 2 weekends worth of adventures I want to share with you, but I didn't do a whole lot. And then there's one little thing up in the news here I want to talk about, and you've probably seen it if you're in this little wildlife and nature community. Is There was a guy in Wyoming who ran over a wolf, taped up its mouth, paraded around its neighborhood bar, and then took it out to the back and shot it. A lot of animal rights groups, all that kind of stuff, welfare groups, they're up in arms about it. Rightfully so. That to me doesn't sound like ethical or the hunt with honor type of hunting in any way, shape, or form. It seems a little bit cruel, inhumane, and doesn't really bring like honor to the sport of hunting. It doesn't bring like that sense of like stewardship or I don't like a trophy or anything like that. Like it's just kind of like it's like low hanging fruit. You're running it over with a snowmobile, and then you're taping up its mouth, and then you're bringing it to the bar where it never should be as a wild animal, and then kind of like you know exposing it to like stress and all this anxiety. It's a wild animal. It doesn't even really want to be around people to begin with, let alone like an urban area. And then after you're done kind of like joking around and pranking and whatever, the animals reach like its top full anxiety, you take it out back and shoot it. Like I don't agree with it at all, really. Like a lot of people don't like hunting in general, and I don't disagree with hunting. I believe humans are also a part of like the ecosystem to an extent, but there should be rules and regulations and sort of like pride and ethics associated with hunting. You got to do it responsibly, and I don't think this was very responsible. I think it was very irresponsible, and I feel other hunters out there, the responsible ones, will also think very lowly of this as well. Because it's not going to just make this one person look bad. It's going to make all hunters look bad just by proximity. And people will be able to take this kind of news article, this kind of event, and run with it and be like, oh, we should, get rid of hunting or whatever, etc. And that gives, the legit, good, well-rounded, spiritual, kind of like well-anchored hunters a lot of a lot of hardship and stress to kind of deal with going forward politically or locally, and it's not great. It's a net loss, I think, for everybody involved, right? Like the hunting community takes a loss when this kind of thing happens. The wildlife community takes a loss when this happens, and it's bad. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. There's a news article out there about this kind of stuff. If you search it, it's like Wyoming man, and just search like runs over wolf or something. It'll probably come up, but people are seeking justice against this person and stuff like that, and it doesn't seem like a very, I don't know. It's not an honorable thing to do. It's not an honorable thing to do, so you can't really respect it. It's not respectable. Yeah, I don't know. It's when I hear stuff like that, it's like treat the animal with some dignity and respect. It's giving you its life so you can have life, if you're going to eat it. Like there should be some level of respect, of like some sort of honor. Like, I'm not killing you because I want to. I'm killing you because I need you. I need your sustenance. And it's this weird kind of give and take exchange between you and nature. And you shouldn't take, what's the word? Like you shouldn't like revel in like the pain that animal experience. The pain, is something you recognize, and you should be like, maybe not sorry, but like to some extent kind of like, you don't want it to suffer more than it needs to just so you can live, right? It giving up its life is already the ultimate sacrifice. You don't have to add insult to injury. That's like the way I look at it. And like some people just look at like the natural world as something you can just pilfer and take from and use it to like your own ends because you're more important than everything else that's out there. And I am a human first type of person as well, but with great power comes great responsibility, to quote, something as corny as Spider-Man, but it's true. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should, and you should be reserved in your flexing of power. And by power I mean like sort of like your ability to kill other creatures or take their life. Anyway, moving on, I want to talk about some of my escapades into my past couple of weekends. So some of you may have seen that the boss, the notorious quasi mythological grizzly bear in Banff, a lot of people love him. A lot of people, gather. They want to see him. This and that. He's a local legend. Basically, he's been hit by trains. He's fought off other bears. I don't know what other legends are associated with him. Maybe he's been shot once or something crazy. I don't know. But he's been the dominant grizzly bear in that area, and kind of getting more familiar with the boss. I haven't seen him. I may have seen him before, but I just couldn't like accurately identify him. But I have seen large grizzlies in Banff, so maybe it was him, and it was kind of near the area he usually hangs around in early spring, so it probably was him. But he's not as impressive as other grizzly bears I've seen. Like I've seen much bigger outside of that national park and the surrounding provincial parks and stuff like that, and especially in British Columbia, you see massive grizzlies. You see these, like they're huge. Like they're a different creature altogether. Like they're almost like werewolves. Like they're just so like, they have like this like stare where it's just like this like alpha dominant super male animal. And then you have like these other grizzlies. They're respectfully still kind of intimidating looking in their own right. They just don't have that same impact. And I would put the boss kind of like into that pile. Still not nothing to be trifled with or messed with at all. Always use an abundance of caution. But he is a little smaller. To give him a little bit of credit, the photos I've seen from his recent emergence from hibernation, it is after hibernation. He's probably looking a little slim. But what else can I say about him? Like he's known to kind of like patrol the train tracks. Like he's like a train track bear. And the reason he's a train track bear is because all this grain and other food, maybe there's like corn and stuff that falls off the train, and he kind of just like forages off of this grain. So he's not really like the other bears you see, like the other big grizzlies that are just like pure salmon eaters, or they're just like constantly hunting like lambs and like baby moose and stuff. Like he's, in a way, he's like most park animals, where they're this weird sort of like open ranch wildlife, like semi accustomed to people type of animal. He seems kind of like this, like it's almost like a docile version of a grizzly bear, though. When I use the word docile, that doesn't mean that bear's docile. Like, don't get it twisted. But I'm used to seeing like a lot more, I don't know what would be the word, like feral kind of behavior, more apprehension of people, this and that, this sort of thing. But, he lives in one of Canada's top tourist destinations. It's frequented by people daily, nonstop. So, of course, this bear is going to have some sort of understanding of what people are, maybe not direct interactions, but from a distance, he's going to know they exist and see them quite frequently, as opposed to his more wild counterparts that are in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, so my point is, the speculative mind of mine kind of goes into this area of like, is the boss really this formidable bear that, gives rise to this like myth and like folklore and legend that he's like this dominant person? Or is it just the bear they keep there for the sake of the ecosystem, because he's easily managed by like he's not like human aggressive so far, and if he was, I imagine he would have been either A, relocated, or B, destroyed like any other animal that shows aggression to humans is. So I figure like if you're going to run a park full of people, you would want a bear that isn't human aggressive at all, or predatory or anything like that, because that would be the only one you could keep there. And you would technically need at least one big grizzly bear at the top of the food chain to maintain the ecosystem, because nothing else kills bears except for like other bears. They happen to be cannibalistic in some sense, so they kind of keep their own population under control. And so there's that. I don't know. Like, I'm a little bit speculative. It's like, is he kind of just like played up? And like, I don't know. I think that might be the case. I think he's a played up bear a little bit. I think maybe there's more myth than there is to the legend, or more myth than there is to the reality of that. But like everyone else, I got some friends in Banff, and they messaged me. They're like, "Hey, we saw him," and they saw him like incidentally. They didn't see him because people had like rang the alarm bells, ding, 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 come look, he's out, he's out. It's like, no, they were just like on their way to do their normal routine of, go hit up the snowboard mountains or whatever. And they're on the way there, they see him, and they say, hey, he's woken up. Maybe you can get a shot of him. But lo and behold, there's also like a multitude of other people that drive by that exact same spot, and they notify the woodworks of like the entire population of Banff to tell them, hey, he's out and about. People run to like the news stations, let them know, hey, he's out and about. No one really keeps mum the word on these types of things. They like to proclaim it and post it and brag about it. I always tell people, keep your like wildlife photos maybe like a week apart, really work on that editing, drag it out, even though I'm a bigger fan of raw, but there is a little bit of room for like editing, cropping or whatever, but, or like, let's like trickle drop it out. Like, I know you got to release some of those like big, elk bugling videos that week of rut, because that's when they're popular. That's when you're going to get the most hits and stuff like that. And you can go find an animal in rut anywhere, but yeah, I don't know. So basically, people sounded the alarms on this guy coming out of hibernation, this bear, and everyone shows up. Everybody, the entire town shows up for this. And at a certain extent, you start seeing people having concern. They have some real concerns, and they're kind of valid. They carry some water. Like when I'm, listening to like reading these things and listening to these things people are talking about, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's like, this is borderlining on harassment of the animal. People staking out and watching where they think he might be or where he currently is. And can't knock him for it. There's some truth to that, right? Even if he is a little conditioned to people. So anyway, I rolled out there to go check it out. And there was a ton of people there. And I've gone to very few of these kind of events and I didn't know there was going to be people there. But when there is, it's always disappointing, and I don't really engage in it. And I don't care if it's a wolverine, mountain lion, what have you. I called a good name for them, and my friend kind of came up with this. They're sort of like paparazzi events. I've been to two. I've experienced two. I wasn't really there. I experienced one. This second one with the boss, I wouldn't really say I was a part of, but I did stroll by. And I hung out for maybe 10 minutes if I'm being generous. And I hate it. My first paparazzi experience, this paparazzi event experience where there's like a ton of people around to see like one animal. They're icky. They're gross. It's like, it doesn't feel right. It's like everything's cheap about it. Like it's like some roadside attraction. It's not something you encountered, out hiking out in the wilderness. It's almost like manufactured. It seems fake to some degree. There's a ton of other people there. And here's the thing. The other people ruin it. So if you're doing video, you're always going to get the sounds of vehicles. You're going to get the sound of people talking. You're going to get like laughing, all that kind of junk. It's going to end up into your sound. And I don't care what kind of mic you have for isolation, or if it's a shotgun mic or parabolic mic or whatever it is, like it's going to get messed up. You're going to capture, depending on where the bear is, and the boss likes to hang around train tracks, so you're constantly going to get human elements or like these non-wild looking elements, whether it's railroad tracks, signage, or cable wires, what have you. It's not going to look like a wild animal. It's kind of going to look like, okay, like there's a bear on the train tracks, like cool, like you see that, like I don't know, it's much more mystifying to see it in its natural habitat, performing natural things, whether it's at a river, stream, open on the plains, like something like that. I don't know. For me personally, that's the better shot. That's the better footage. That's the better capture. Though the boss is this sort of like monumental creature that I do kind of want to have at least a little bit of footage of at some point in my life to say, before he passes or dies or whatever, to say, yeah, look, I got a video of the boss and what. But that was not the time or the place to do that, because it didn't feel right. And it doesn't feel right because I feel like those sort of like paparazzi events is harassment. It's harassment to the animal. And I had a bit of a discussion with this with my friend after, and they agreed. They were kind of like, yeah, it's kind of, it's the people there. Like I said earlier, it's the people that ruin this. The people absolutely 100 positively 1,000,000% ruin this. And they ruin it for the one time I went to one, and I already saw it, what it was there at this one. And I was like, yeah, I can't go to these. I can't do this. This isn't me. This isn't who I am. This isn't what I'm about. This is kind of against a lot of what I preach. I'm like, oh, this is icky. This is the ickiest of the stickiest. You get all kinds of people. You get ethical photographers. You get unethical ones. You get professional ones who are all kinds of stuff. And so if you look at a lot of the pictures of the boss, you'll notice the angle it was taken at suggests that that photographer was on the train tracks. So what can we establish from that? Well, I hate to be a stickler for the rules, but those train tracks, those are private property. And I'm not sure if it's a crown corporation, like a federally owned corporation, or a separate corporation on like federal land or what. But anyway, it's trespassing. It's a massive, huge fine. Like it's a big fucking deal. Like you don't fuck with the train tracks. The train tracks are like a thing. It's like involved in economy, big contracts, big investors, big government. You don't fuck with the train tracks. You don't go on the train tracks. You don't hold, like, if you cause an accident, like, you know, like it's unspeakable how much, like, you know, that is, right? So anyway, it's illegal. You don't walk on the train tracks. You don't do it. You're not supposed to do it. But what do you see when you go to these things? You see people on the train tracks. How do they get on them? I don't know. They probably just walked across through the forest, this and that. Some of this forest area, you're not supposed to walk on either. There's rules and regulations for that because it's like a reforesting area or like whatever it is. They're trying to like rewild it and these sensitive vegetation. Don't trample on it, blah. So you see that and you're kind of like, well, I hope this guy gets dinged for this because, you know, maybe there's an element of jealousy to it. Like, oh, he's willing to risk the biscuit to get the footage, but it's also not really jealousy because I would never do it in principle, even if no one was around. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. And then you also have the idea of like, okay, it's getting close to the animal. He's not really being safe for himself or for the animal. He's not creating a far enough distance. There are rules and regulations on how far away you need to be from predatory animals, especially in national parks. And then there's just kind of like your own safety and the safety for the animal, not to like stress it out or make it behave unnaturally. You don't want footage of an animal behaving as if it's interacting with people. You want it behaving with how it behaves in its natural environment with its natural surroundings. Having it like look at you and look nervous and like kind of like hesitant, that's not a good shot. That's like, dude, you're taking a picture of a bear you tormented, kind of like you scared it. Like it's not a good shot. It's nothing to like phone home to mom about and like get onto the newspaper about. And here's the part that kind of like makes my balls itch about it. It's like you see these shots ending up on like magazines, newspapers, documentaries, this and that. And it's like, there's no consideration. You just have some pompous fool who's made a name for himself by living in Banff and selling photos. And he's able to like, you know, play that up. And it's like, you know, how come he's never been charged or investigated for his photography when clearly there was a breach of the law? No one's obviously brought it forward to complain about it. That's part of it. But also like, where's all the responsibility groups and stuff like that being like, meh, 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 meh. Like people get on my case all the time until I show them the power of my zoom. They're like, oh, you were too close. It's like, no. Let me like, most of the time now I have to do like an opening shot just for like evidence to like prove innocence of like public, what would you call it? The court of public opinion. Say, okay, I'm going to do a shot right now where it shows how far away I am, and I'm going to zoom all the way in to the animal to where about I want it in my normal video. And then I'll do another video where I actually have it zoomed in and stuff and set up, and then have it on the tripod, and I have it mounted so it doesn't shake and this and that. And then I zoom in and record the footage. Now, when I put up just the video of just the footage without this big zoom in, people are like, oh, how'd you get that close? You're not supposed to be that close. What are you doing? And it's usually other people who are jealous or envious or, not succeeding as well in wildlife photography as maybe you are, whatever. And then you have to like link this video or send or upload another video being like, here, no, I'm an ethical photographer. This is what I believe, and also follow the rules and regulations of the states and provinces that I'm in when recording. You basically got to give a disclaimer nowadays, just to kind of keep yourself on the up and up, and like make sure, like, hey, no, it's okay. You can trust me. Like, okay, like keep receipts. You gotta keep receipts. But here you got it, straight proof and evidence that it's like, okay, not really on the up and up. And he might have a mega lens, and he might have been far away enough, and maybe the track turned at a certain point, and he technically wasn't on the track, but even then, I think you have to be like 15 feet away from them or something, 15 meters away from the track, right? So I don't know if these people are telling the truth or not. And then you got like these like really annoying people who convey themselves as being like locals, or like, I live in Banff. This is and it's like, oh, okay, how long have you been here? I've been living here for 6 months. It's kind of like, dude, I hate to break this to you, but you're a long-term tourist. In fact, you don't even have any identification that says you live here. All your identification says you're from New Zealand, Australia, the UK, or whatever. And it's kind of like, here you are, like, or maybe another province altogether, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, Texas, whatever. And it's like, okay, now we have this guy LARPing as a local because he's been here 6 months. He's basically just a long-term tourist with like a job or maybe like a Airbnb. And then this guy goes around and like he's going around, he's talking to everyone like he knows everything there is to know about it. He's in full-on LARP mode. LARP to the extreme, like LARP the extraordinaire. He knows everything there is to know about bears. He knows everything there is to know about photography. He's the most pompous, arrogant. He's got his Patagonia vest on. You can't, you know exactly who I'm talking about when I'm talking about this guy. Like, I'm chilling. I'm in my car. He wants to talk to me through the window. He's like, oh, do you have bear spray? And I'm like, no, why the fuck would I have bear spray? He's like, oh, I'm like, first of all, I don't even think the bear's here. Like, he wasn't. The bear wasn't even there. And I'm just kind of like, do you have bear spray? And he's like, yeah, I got bear spray. And I'm like, what are you anticipating happen? Like, I guess it's a good preventative measure, maybe to some degree, but if a bear's decided to charge you and attack you, one, you've gotten way too fucking close. The next thing is, you don't have any geographical barriers between you and the bear before you like decided to even get out of your vehicle. Or is it a straight shot to you? Because if it's a straight shot to you, that's a bad day to set up for fucking video cameraing anything. So at least you're in your car. You can do up the window, you can drive away, whatever. You don't really look like you're in the shape of something a bear would want to eat when you're inside a vehicle anyway. It's like, I was like, what? No, I don't need bear. Like, I'm not going over there to fuck with this bear. I don't need bear spray. Like, I don't even intend on it. Like, I don't even think there's a bear here. But anyway, this person, like, he's like, oh, like, what are you going to do, like, when a bear attacks you? And I'm just like, I'm doing everything I can possibly do in my, like, fucking fiber of every being to make sure I'm never attacked by a bear. Like, like, just for beginners, like, I make sure I got the geographical barriers. I make sure I got the distance. I make sure I got an escape route to a vehicle, like, or like a building or something, right? Like, the bear spray. Okay, here's what I have to say about bear spray. I think people should carry it as a safety precaution, especially if you're dumb. But here's the thing. I've been pepper sprayed multiple times in my life. I don't believe that. Okay, I can fight through and overcome pepper spray. to obtain an objective or something. Anyone who's done any kind of training, they've probably been exposed to pepper spray as well. If a human, you can go on the internet, you can see like military guys, all that stuff doing their training, getting sprayed, all that kind of crap. If a human can overcome those and do like a military exercise where they're fighting other people, this and that, while pepper sprayed, what do you think a bear can accomplish when highly motivated and pepper sprayed? It can probably do a lot more than a human can. So is the pepper spray going to stop the bear? No. Okay, how many maulings have reported that the people had pepper spray in hand and appeared to have deployed it, and their bodies were found? There's been quite a few. So clearly the pepper spray doesn't, it's not like, it's like this, like the thing that's just going to save your life. That's not the truth. It's not going to save your life. It might, it could, like maybe it prevents it. Maybe that bear's like, it doesn't have the motivation that day, or it's a younger bear. It's a juvenile bear. It doesn't have like that high testosterone, whatever capacity to really pursue you beyond after getting pepper sprayed. Like they go around and like start lecturing people on bear spray. It's just so pretentious. It's so annoying. Like it's like, why do you feel compelled to do this? Like, why do you feel compelled to talk to all these people? Like, why do you feel compelled to talk to me? Like, are you selling pepper spray? It sounds like you're trying to sell people pepper spray. Why are you out of your vehicle? Why are you here? Why are you lecturing people? Like, why are you contributing to this whole problem? Basically, you are a part of the problem. That, like, you're a worse part of the problem, kind of, in a way. And then you have just, like, the average, like, this area was also an area where people have a lot of foot traffic. It's where people jog. Okay, I go to Banff a lot. The Bow Valley Parkway, it's jogged routinely, like constantly, like all the time, especially by the people living and working in Lake Louise. It's like a place they go to jog. It's a place they go to bike. What do you think was happening there? There's people jogging and hiking. They're on their bikes. They're not hiking because it's a road, dude. They were jogging and they were biking. I saw elderly people biking. I saw elderly people jogging. And then this guy's concerned with the cars. It's like, bro, why don't you go talk to those people over there, like wearing the same kind of Patagonia, jacket as you? Like, why aren't you telling them, asking them if they have pepper spray? Oh man, it just gets so annoying. There was a guy on a bike. He was like cyclist. He was like cycling by, and he's like, these guys should have a bear tracking app. And I was just like, well, that's illegal if it does exist. There's some states that do it, but just like as a warning system, and then obviously some people capitalize on them as a way to take pictures of them. But technically some of these, creatures, they're going to be radio collared on occasions, and people have radio trackers that connect to an app, and then the app tells you where the bear is. Illegal in parks. It's illegal. They don't want you finding the bears. They want you harassing the bears. They want you going after them. They want them to go about their own business. If you come across one incident to your regular activities, there's precautionary things for you to do. One, like keep your distance, all that stuff. Be educated. What I'm getting at is there's a bunch of people out there with a ton of advice, opinions, this and that. They contradict. Sometimes they even go against the laws. And like, there's just a ton of like, it was just all the ickiest kinds of people, right? And then you have like the dedicated photographers. You see them inside their vehicles, either inside their Jeeps or inside their like SUVs, and they're just there with their window cracked or coming out the sunroof, and you got the camera set up on the edge of the car, all that kind of stuff, and it seems relatively safe. But when you have that at scale, and there's a ton of people, and there's people running out of their vehicles, not really caring that your camera shot set up from your vehicle and stepping in front of your camera shot, and you got people yelling and screaming, and you got people like hooting and hollering, and you got people biking and jogging. It's weird how the people biking and jogging are like excused from the scrutiny of like photography on that paparazzi event, because it's like, aren't the people like running by more likely to be attacked? Like, let's say the bear was there. Let's say it's a full-on paparazzi event. The bear was actually there. If someone runs by, does not kind of portray to the bear as like prey behavior? It's got your back to it, you run away. Certainly that could provoke a charge. And also, most bear attacks happen to people on bikes because one, they're silent. You roll up on them in complete silence and you surprise them on the trails. Two, because of the way the length is on the bike and sometimes the way people lean forward, you kind of present to yourself as you present yourself as like sort of like a quadruped to them in their mind. That shape is kind of like quadruped-like, so you kind of resemble prey or something it usually tries to eat. They don't try to eat cars. I mean, sometimes they'll try to break into them if they can smell food through them, but that's about the extent of it. Anyway, I hate these paparazzi events. They're full of all the worst people. Photographers are the worst. We're the absolute worst. Like, I try not to be the worst because I just try to avoid the paparazzi events altogether. But there's zero consideration for other people's shot. There's zero consideration for silence. There's zero and like, you get a mixed bag of people. You get people trying to take pictures with like smartphones, and it's like, what are you doing? That's not going to do anything. Like, what do you even? I guess they're just like a tourist and they just want to have like a crappy little photo to be like, oh my god, I saw a bear. Okay, whatever. That's cool too. But like, within reason, like as long as you're not, having to walk up to the bear and like you can do it from your car or whatever. But it just creates like this huge environment of like a bunch of conflicting views, a bunch of conflicting expectations, a bunch of know-it-alls, a bunch of people that don't know anything, a bunch of like, I can't stand it. Like, I can't stand going to them. Like, I had to leave. I could only be there for like 5 minutes. I said 10, but it was like 5. And I was just kind of like, I'm like, clearly everyone's staked out here. I doubt the bear is still here. Like, there seems to be some real doubts, unless it's like Den is right there. And if it's Den is right there, this is kind of icky that you're kind of like hanging out at its den. But yeah, I don't know. And then like, you see all these shots now up there of the boss, and you realize like, not all of them, because obviously some people got there before the hair, or like they got there before the drop, the hair of the trigger, like. But a certain amount of these shots are going to be basically from people staking out, being a part of that crowd, being a part of that sort of like paparazzi event. And once you're at one of them, you realize how gross they are. And it's kind of like, you realize like other photographers, other like videographers, other like wildlife influencers, they know what happened when you took that picture. They know what happened when you took that video. They know how that went down. They know how close in proximity you are to that train track and that roadway. They can tell if you're outside of your, well, maybe they can't tell if you're outside your vehicle. It really depends on the rig or setup you have. But, depending on the angles, this and that, like, it's like, we know that wasn't a high effort capture. That was low effort. That was low hanging fruit. It's cool to have it like in your collection, I guess, because it's like, oh, I got a picture of the boss, this and that. But I don't know. It's really ironic, man, because you see these photos of the stuff of the event happening, and you see all these like criticism like articles, kind of like this podcast right now, I guess. And it's like, people need to leave the boss alone. It's like, one, you're profiting off people not leaving the boss alone because people are clicking your article and you're getting ad revenue from it. Two, the photo you're using in the article, you either got from a photographer because you paid them, because you freelanced it, or you had like some sort of mutual exposure agreement, and now you're using the photo from that event that you're claiming was harassing the bear, and it kind of was, to now put in your article. So you're benefiting off that in a way. Like, it's kind of a weird thing because you do want the message to get out. But do you need to use, like, you put a photo up there and you give credit to like a photographer, and then you complain about it. It's kind of like, well, now this person's happy because they're published, they're in an article, their photos are being used in the media. They're like, yippee. And it's like, you just basically dignified or like incentivized the exact thing you're criticizing in your article, in your art, like via means through your article. And I know this is a very like straw man type of argument. There's not a lot of water to it. I understand that, but it's a whole weird thing, and it gets it's a perfect picture of what Banff is like. It's for the people, like hypocritical, rules for thee but not for me. Like you have to live your pretentiousness stuff and this and that. Da, 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 da. This is it's so annoying. It is so incredibly annoying. It never ends with the pretentious people of Banff. Sometimes not everyone there's pretentious. Don't get all up and get your ruffles on all the feathers. Listen, there's some really cool people in Banff, without a doubt. A lot. There's a ton, and there's a ton of like long-term tourists, seasonal workers, the coolest fucking nicest people you ever fucking meet in your life. But and I know, there's some fucking turbo psycho annoying people in Banff. To the extreme. There's the daily tourists that are just frustrating and annoying because they're just tourists. And tourists are annoying wherever they are in the world. And when you travel, you're also annoying and you're an annoying tourist. But that's just the nature of tourism. That's just the nature of it. That's just what it is. The point I'm trying to make is just because you reside in an area, it doesn't make you more sophisticated. It doesn't make you more intelligent. It doesn't make you more spiritual. It doesn't make you more aware. It doesn't make you any better than anybody else. It doesn't. If anything, it might go a bit to your head and make you believe certain things that aren't true and sort of just make you a whole lot less self-aware. That's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of lack of self-awareness. And it's kind of like there's irony to almost everything. So like the article sort of like complaining about people and also sort of gaining profit off of that sort of circumstance. And then you have the people who go there and want to give advice and lecture, but then are also like a part of the problem themselves. And it's like, well, if you wanted to help this situation, you would leave. You would tell other people, hey, we should probably leave. Like, that's the reality of it. You should have just, like, this is probably what I should have done. I should have been like, when this guy's talking to me about pepper spray, I should have been like, you know what, this seems gross. Like, give the opinion I'm giving now in short form, but to like this guy, and be like, you know what? This whole situation is gross. Like, this is gross. Like, I'm leaving. That's something I determined on my own within like 5 minutes. But, you know, this guy's hanging out there feeling like he's doing like God's work. And he wasn't asking anybody to leave or anything. He was just sort of like criticizing. It was weird. He was a very weird guy. It was a very strange interaction. It's like he wanted to say more things maybe, but he didn't. And he's telling people to have pepper spray. Like, maybe he's just like Captain Safety. That was a strange thing. It was a very unusual thing. It was just like a salesman had drilled into his head the importance of having pepper spray. That's one thing I've seen in Banff a lot, is people holding pepper spray, and it's fucking weird. Like, I remember hiking the Beehive, like Lake Louise, like that tea house hike that has like 1,000,000 people on it. Just like it's basically like people just, I don't know, man, like doing like some sort of like trek like through the woods together, and it's not even like that remote. Well, it's remote, but it's like there's a lot of people, so it doesn't feel remote at all. This guy was literally jogging the trail with like a massive canister, like a massive one full of like bear spray, and he's got it in his hand, and he's like jogging up. And I'm like, dude, you realize there's like 500 people ahead of you who have like cleared the path, and if there's any wildlife on this trail at all, it is fucking terrified of how many fucking people are on it right now, and it is nowhere near here. Like, maybe they come around at night to kind of pick up like the trash people leave behind and stuff on the trails. Like, maybe someone throws their apple core into the bush or something like that. But during the day, definitely not. And it was just like ridiculous. And like, this guy, he made me more nervous than any bear has ever made me feel in my life. Because I was like, I know a bear is going to act like a bear, and I know how to act as a human to avoid a bear from behaving like the worst version of a bear. You seem like you're one bad day away from unleashing that fucking bottle of fire onto my face. Like, I don't know what happened to this guy. Maybe he's had an incident with a bear before. But like, holy man, like, come on. Like, I can understand if you were like backcountry, but you were on the most trafficked trail in all of Banff. You were on the biggest one. You were on the, like, when you get to the end of a hike in Lake Louise up with the tea house and the beehive, you see a small village full of people clamored around the lake. That's probably why they increased the rates and the pricing and on the parking there. I'm just going to summarize my thoughts on all this. If you see a paparazzi event for wildlife, don't even bother stopping. Don't even bother going. Don't even bother participating. There's zero gain from it. It's gross. It's icky. I've learned my lesson. Though, in fairness, I thought maybe I was going to get like there before the crowd did on the situation because of, the friends letting me know. And I wouldn't have gone if I thought there was going to be a bunch of people there. I learned my lesson from the first time when there was like this paparazzi event was like, I don't know, it was like a flash mob of people. So that wasn't like a organized one. I'm not a part of any of these Facebook groups that like share like, oh, there's a bear here, come here. Like, I am never joining any of those. And if you're a part of those, man, like, come on now, man, come on. I kind of get it, like, but I still never utilize it. Like, I can understand being like, you really want to get like a mountain lion photo or video or Wolverine. So you kind of want to know, where is the territory of this like Wolverine? Like, but can't you like leave some things up to like self-discovery just through outdoor recreation and like lifestyle? Like, can't you just like one day come across it and know it's there, or just like talking amongst it through your peers and stuff like that? Like, do you really have to make it like this grimy, like super easily accessible thing? Like, man, like I like it better when like you could just like meet someone on a hike, and like you're just talking to them like on a lookout point, and you start talking about wildlife and your interests, and someone's like, hey, I saw a wild hot dog in a cucumber wrap over there once, and you're just kind of like, what? And then they're just kind of like, yeah, and then you kind of like know about it, and it's just like this word of mouth through like natural human interaction, through sheer chance of, and then kind of like there's something more, I don't know, like spiritual or like fateful or like sort of like meant to be in those sort of things. When you kind of like manufacture these sort of like interactions between you and wildlife by going on Facebook and joining the Facebook bear group and being like, where are all the bears at? I need to find me some bears. I need to go play with their fur and pet them and feed them and, get all up in their business. Like, why? I don't know. That's gross. And like, sometimes like in that situation, you kind of end up into the mess with those people. You end up in the mess with those people. Those kind of like, they're kind of slimier. I think so. Like, not everyone in that group's obviously a slime ball, but like, you gotta think, you go to these situations and you feel good about them. You go to the paparazzi events and you have no problem with them. I don't know. I think you got to reflect on what you're doing and what your goals are, because you ain't fooling anybody. You ain't fooling me. I know what it took to get that shot of that grizzly bear. It wasn't pretty. Nope. And if I can see the train tracks coming towards you in that picture, I know you were up to no good. You were trespassing on that property. And that's just the way she goes, boys and girls. That's just the way she fucking goes. I don't know. I'm definitely always now going to 100% avoid paparazzi or potential paparazzi events. One day I do hope to get footage of the boss, but I hope it is in the most meaningful way possible and the safest way possible. And I hope there is no other people around when it happens. And I will tell no one that I saw the boss until perhaps like at minimum 2 days, but at maybe a week. So I know that people aren't going, and people will still go to where I saw him, and I'll still get DMs on where I saw him, and people will still go there thinking he's still going to be there, even though this guy's probably walking around looking for things to eat, like berries and dandelions and what, and like probably eating grain because he's a freaking grain grizzly bear. He's not even like a wild grizzly bear. He's like a human refuse, like a human refuse, consuming grizzly bear. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. I said all I could say. We shouldn't be paparazzi for animals. We shouldn't be paparazzi for them. I feel like there's a there's an intersection between tourism attraction. So you kind of want to have this like folklore, mystical type of like legendary animal to kind of like draw people in for tourism. But there's an inflection point between that and just sort of like inconvenient lies or convenient lies of like, he's not that big of a deal. And then to the point where you're kind of causing these sort of like influxes of like paparazzi events to like borderline harass the animal, depending on the situation. Oh, and here's the other point. I wanted to bring this up because this just crossed my mind again. The people at these paparazzi events, you don't know them from Adam, so you don't know what the fuck they're up to. And I know there's a lot of scummy photographers out there that aren't ethical whatsoever. So how can you, as like another photographer or videographer, if you're ethical, know that everyone here, how do you know this isn't like someone went out there and baited and like they posted about it, and now you're like, obviously you don't have knowledge about it, so there's no fault to you. Or like, and you're sort of indirectly benefiting off somebody else baiting. Like, how do you not know, like, like, I don't know. There's just certain things like, or like pheromones, or, what if someone like was tracking a radio caller? Like, how do you know these events are natural? Like, I know this, I'm pretty confident this one was natural because my friends told me about it when they're on their way to snowboarding. They just happened to see it. But they themselves could have walked in on an unnatural occurrence, like a conveniently crafted situation by somebody else's doing. What if someone pulled them out, like somehow like provoked them out of hibernation or something because they know where the den is? I doubt that happened. That's like too conspiratorial. I think, there's good evidence to support he came out naturally because there was a big melt, kind of like temperature really jumped up. So he's probably like, oh, winter's over. Time to have at her. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't trust these other people. Call me a worried wart. I feel like you might even have people that decide to deploy a drone, and we know drones are illegal in the parks. And even if they weren't, we know they're kind of unethical because they do. Most animals try to attack them and they don't like them. And then if someone does start to do like, I don't know, some sort of weirdo like animal calls, or they start doing like the pheromones, or they start doing like the attractants and stuff like that, and you see them doing it, you can give them shit. You can be like, hey, you can't do that. That's illegal. Or you shouldn't do that. That's unethical, depending on the situation. And you remain there and you know what's happening. Aren't you sort of like indirectly benefiting from that situation? Like, and then are you still ethical? It becomes kind of like this, this question you're gonna have to ask yourself. And I don't want to be subject. I don't think any of this happened, but you never. It could probably happen. I think it probably has happened in the past, and it probably will happen in the future. But and then like, let's say the authorities roll up and they start like slapping everybody with fines and stuff like that. Well, they probably wouldn't slap everybody. They'd probably just slap the people responsible. But you don't want your work, you don't want your name, your reputation to be associated with this kind of stuff, like these paparazzi events and all the nonsense and shenanigans and, Turon behavior. Like, you don't want to be associated with like, oh, you were at the paparazzi event for the Boston Banff where a guy walked on the tracks, got hit by a train, and there was a dude flying 5 drones, and there was like a person with their cell phone camera that walked up to the bear and got swiped, and you were out there, and like, and what did you do? You just took video of it all? You just took pictures of it? Like, you were good. You were in your, like, it's a fucking dolphin show. It's a shit show. You like, man, like I've gone on for like an hour about this, and I hope I've given you guys food for thought. Maybe I should just continue on ranting because I've had a bunch of people from Banff cheese me this weekend. Cheese me. Like if it's not in person through like natural interactions, it's like definitely over like social media. Like, and it's such the harmless little banter back and forth. Like no one's name calling or anything like that, but it's just like difference of opinion. Like the Moraine Lake parking lot closure is like the most brain numbing debate I've ever seen, where people are like, I haven't seen this argument proposed, and I have never seen anyone say this is the reason for getting rid of the parking lot. Like the only reason I've ever seen getting rid of the parking lot is because parking was always full. But a really good explanation for keeping the parking lot closed like throughout the night, it's like, oh, it's better for the wildlife. You know, it gives them an opportunity to move through that area in that corridor without worry of people, because, you know, the presence of people really changes their behavior and how they migrate or move through an area or use these wildlife corridors. I could be like, well, oh yeah, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Yeah, like I totally get where the fuck they're coming from now. But when they just tell me like the parking lot was always full, so we're taking away the parking lot, I'm like, no, dude, like that's a terrible, terrible, terrible excuse. Oh, and we're upping the amount of shuttles, and the only way to get there is to pay for a shuttle. I had one dude tell me, he was like, as a Banff local, and soon as someone says they're a Banff local, I really want to be like, okay, let's see your Alberta driver's license. You know they don't have one. You know they don't have like any ID that says they're even like an Albertan. Like, and it would be a stretch. There's like a 50-50 chance they're not even Canadian. It's like, okay, like if I stay in a hotel in Banff, am I a Banff local now? Because that's what half the people are. They're being put up in the hotels because they work for the hotel or the tourism industry. And then they think they're local because they spent like a year there. It's annoying. It's really annoying. If you visited Banff throughout your life and you're from like Calgary, you are more a local than someone that's been there for like a couple months. In my opinion, you've been there through like, you've seen the growth of the place like throughout the years. I digress. I've gone off track. As a Banff local, I want to experience wildlife and nature as it's supposed to be, with less cars. This is what this person says. And I'm like, okay, if you want to experience wildlife and nature as it's supposed to be, you might want to start with not being in the number one tourist destination in Canada. It is inevitable that it's going to have a crap ton of people, and it's going to be a far detachment from this romanticized idea of like the vast wilderness and like solitude area. You can get that in Canada, but it's typically not in Banff. It's the surrounding parks, much more rustic and stuff like that. So I was kind of like, that's sort of like a logical fallacy. And then you have to realize like Banff's entire economy is tourism based. So remove the tourists, there is no economy. There is no place to sustainably live. You therefore then have to move because you can't afford to plow the roads in the winter and no one's coming to help you. Simple as that. Like it's as simple as that. And what removing the parking lot does ultimately, even if you're a local, it removes your ability to go there to watch the stars at night. It removes your ability, depending on the time of year, to watch the sunset there or sunrise. And especially during the summertime. So you can do far less in your own backyard than you could before previously. I think that is a point worth taking, that you now have less access to your park than you have ever before. And to access it even a little bit now, you must pay additional money to do so. And to say it's going to be quieter because there's less cars, that is a very straw man, like I don't even think there's a point to it, because I don't think it's true. And the reason I don't think it's true is because you're going to have like a 1,000 more shuttles running through there, constantly nonstop drop and go, some probably parking and waiting for a bit. But you have to remember, these shuttles have like hydraulic systems in them. They're loud. They're like buses, right? They're much louder than vehicles, especially like electric vehicles. And there's a lot of electric vehicles that do these like little drives in Banff, which are completely silent. So I'm kind of like, like, why are these people coming up with like these like really, really like straw man, like stupid arguments to defend these sort of poor decisions that sort of just restrict your ability to enjoy nature without a valid reason, like, you know, protecting the ecosystem or whatever. It's just so like, it's like, wow, like these people will really just be oppositionally defiant just because they're like, I don't like the point he's making. I like that it's only shuttles. It's like, dude, you're never up there. You're never there. You go there. You've gone there once. You haven't been there since. The only people that go there multiple times are like the young adults that work in the tourism industry that happen to find it to be like a really cool hangout spot to kind of sit around and talk, stare at the stars, and then photographers and videographers who like to do like the sunrise, sunset, and, you know, astrophotography and all that kind of stuff. Joe Blow, average Joe, whether you live there or not, could give 2 fucks less if that place is accessible at nighttime or not. He could give 2 fucks less if there is less art, if there's less photography in the world. He could give 2 fucks less if somebody is falling in love for the first time there on an evening stroll. They don't care. People don't care. They just want to be right. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you. I hope like I hit some points home. Oh, I forgot to tell a story. I got more podcasts for you. I got podcasts for days for you. So on my venture back from the horrific boss incident where I basically drove out to Banff for 5 minutes of yippee yahoo and always regret coming here experience. My drive back, I'm driving home. I'm kind of close to the Nordegg area. I see this animal beeline across the road. It's kind of small. It's like Wolverine size, and it was kind of black and brown. And I'm thinking, holy fuck, is that a Wolverine? And obviously I'm not going to be able to catch a photo of it or whatever, but I'm just kind of like captivated by the thought that I probably saw one. But I'm able to kind of watch it as it goes through the grass and into the tree line. And I'm like, that didn't really look like a Wolverine. Like, not at all. It kind of looked like a dog. I'm like, was that a dog? I'm like, that kind of looked like a fucking... And then I was like, why the fuck is there a dog out here? And this was like kind of far from Nordegg. Like I want to say like maybe half an hour. Yeah, and I was like, there's no one really fucking that lives around here. I was like, if that was a dog, like, what? How the fuck? Like, I'm thinking, like, holy shit. Like, so I do, like, I pull over, I roll down my window, I do, like, the dog whistle thing. Like, come here, boy, come here. And the whistle, I don't want to whistle into the mic because it's going to be fucking terrible for you listening. Sure enough, this thing comes fucking running out of the bush. It's a fucking dog. It's a German Shepherd. It's a fucking puppy. It's not a fully grown, but it's not like a small puppy. Comes up to my car and he's, like, waiting to get in. I come out. I'm like, holy fuck. I kind of go to look at him. See, he's okay. He's a little dirty, but not even really that dirty. And it doesn't have a collar or anything. I'm like, oh, fuck. I was hoping he would have a collar. And I left my door open on the side of the road. A woman drives by. She pulls over. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, but I don't know really what to do here. I'm kind of confused, and I've never really thought about this possibility happening. So I'm kind of thinking it through as it's happening. She's like, what? I'm like, I was like, I found a dog. It's not my dog. Like, I don't know whose dog this is. And she's like, oh, yeah, whose dog would that be? I'm like, I don't know, maybe someone hiking, camping. I'm not quite sure. And then she's offered me all this help and stuff. And, God bless her. God bless her heart. Like, I'm so glad there's people like this in the world, because I was kind of like, fuck, like, what do I do? Like, and I wasn't going to leave it. Don't think for a second I was going to fucking leave it. It was definitely coming with me. She's like, oh, we should take it into Nordegg and see if anyone there locally knows or whatever. And it's kind of like a small town, so I reckon like maybe somebody would, or at least there would be someone that would be willing to like kind of like hold it or hold on to it or whatever. Because that would be like the place you would go if you like lost a pet or something, right? Like, I don't know, because there's not a whole lot of places to go there. She's like, okay, I'll take them in my car. And I'm kind of like, oh, like, thank God. Because I'm thinking like, oh, my car's like a mess. I don't really have room in it and this and that. She's like, you just follow me though. And like, she's like, I'm not going to be able to bring him to like the bigger cities and stuff like that. So you're going to have to like, get it sorted and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So we're driving along. And then we notice this big driveway as we're driving along. She pulls over, I pull over. She's like, do you think maybe it's these people's dog, or maybe they know? And I'm like, I have no idea, but this is the best shot we have. And so she ends up driving up there, and she goes and asks him, the guy that owned the house there. And like, I don't know how he owned a house. Like, this house was in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of like magical in a way. And it was just kind of like, she's like, yeah, it's my neighbor's dog. Like, it's like, oh, perfect. Like, problem solved. Like, she's like, oh, hold on to the dog and I'll let my neighbor know. So long story short, we found the dog's owner. It was a good feeling, I was glad I stopped. I don't know if like that dog would have been like, snatched up by a bear or something like that. But God bless that woman. I don't know what her name is or who she is, but she definitely helped me in a little bit of a predicament there, and she had a kind heart to stop for someone. So that's a feel good story for this week. Yeah. Very feel good. All right, guys, I've ranted on long and long. You probably didn't even listen to all this. I highly fucking doubt it. I wouldn't have listened to this. This is not even an entertaining rant. It's just a boring rant. It's just the same things running over and over and over again. But whatever. That's all I got to say. Be ethical. Be responsible. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a paparazzi. Help dogs when they're lost. Don't run over animals and parade them around bars and shoot them in the back. That's all I got for y'all. Have a good week. I'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting me. Have a good evening or day.